MLB trade rumors are flying around the internet right now, and the biggest MLB insider of them all has a prediction for the Philadelphia Phillies at the trade deadline and a potential big-time reliever or two that they could acquire. We're going to get into all of that today on the newest episode of Phillies Digest. But before we do that, I do want to remind you guys to please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Just 35% of our viewers that are watching our videos have subscribed so far. We want to get that number up, and we want everybody to hit that subscribe button. And myself and Sean Bernard just eclipsed 4,000 subscribers here on Phillies Digest, and we want to keep that number growing once again. So we have a pretty big report here from Jeff Passan. Jeff Passan, the biggest MLB insider and reporter for ESPN, released basically a huge early look at the MLB trade deadline with stuff for all 30 teams. And a pretty big name for the Phillies was mentioned in his article. So I do want to get into that here. This is what Passan wrote. You can find it on ESPN.com, free and unlocked. So he wrote, for the Philadelphia Phillies, objective, fix the bullpen, best fit, by the name of Pete Fairbanks. What to know? Maybe it's Fairbanks. Maybe it's Finnegan. He means Kyle Finnegan from the Nationals, who could also be another option for the Phillies. Or maybe it's both or even more. The Phillies bullpen has been one of the worst in baseball, even if it was much better in May. Their only reliever with a sub-3 ERA was Orion Kerkering. And with Jose Alvarado down for 80 games and out for the postseason following a performance-enhancing drug suspension, the need for help is that much more grave. Philadelphia's bullpen torpedoed its playoff run last year, and with Alvarado and Jeff Hoffman missing, the onus is on President of Baseball Operations Dave Dombrowski to find enough arms that can generate swing and miss against the gauntlet that is the NL. And we know the NL is a gauntlet, like Jeff Passan said. There's a lot of good teams up and down every division, right? The Phillies, the Mets, the Braves. Even if the record doesn't show it, that can be a scary team in the playoffs, right? The Dodgers, the Padres, the Diamondbacks are kind of on that line right now. The Brewers looked really good this weekend. The Cubs are in contention. You know, there's going to be 8 or 9 teams fighting for 7 playoff spots in the National League. So I think we know the Phillies are going to have to improve this bullpen at some point. This is kind of where it stands right now. You can basically add Taijuan Walker in there as well for now. He has now officially moved to the bullpen full-time. But right now, Jordan Romano, I think we all know about Romano. Rough start to the season, has really turned it on. Had a rough outing last week, but has really turned it on from what he looked like, at least in the beginning of the season. Matt Strahm has been a little shaky this year. Not bad, but definitely not the Strahm we saw last year. I still trust Matt Strahm. Orion Kerkering has had a pretty nice month of May. Joe Ross, we know, he's not a guy that's going to, take down 8 or 9 innings, but he's a guy that can get you some outs. Tanner Banks, another one. Ideally, Tanner Banks isn't throwing in the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning of a playoff game. Carlos Hernandez, ideally, probably, If all things go according to plan, Carlos Hernandez probably isn't in this bullpen come October. And obviously the 2 young guys, specifically Seth Johnson that they called up a few days ago, and Max Lazar. But this is sort of the name that has been mentioned in Pete Fairbanks. What's big about Fairbanks is he does have sort of one more year of sort of control. So he has a club option for next year of $7 million. He signed this year on the payroll to $3.8 million. It's a $4.1 million hit on the luxury tax. So there's a club option for Pete Fairbanks, but he's had a really, really solid start to his season. 3-1 with a 2.05 ERA in 23 appearances out of the bullpen, 10 saves in 22 innings pitched, 22 strikeouts with a 1.23 whip. And, right now the Rays are kind of sitting in a weird spot. The American League isn't that loaded. I mean, obviously, sort of the big guns, right? And the guys that are leading, their division. The Yankees obviously lead the AL East. The Detroit Tigers lead the AL Central. And the AL West right now is I cannot remember off the top of my head. I am blanking like crazy. I apologize. But as we know, the American League is not as loaded as the National League. And the Rays right now, they do just sit 2 games back of a wild card spot. But that's a team that could look to sell at the deadline. And listen, I've wanted Pete Fairbanks for a while. I think he's a really, really good player. He's a really good pitcher, and he can take down big innings. I think we know how much depth the Phillies have at the starting pitching right now. Zack Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola once he comes back, Andrew Painter once he gets called up. That's 6 starters right there. Mick Abel's a 7th. He's supposed to start tomorrow in Toronto. They have 7 starting pitchers once Aaron Nola's healthy and Andrew Painter's called up. All those guys will not start a playoff game. So, once you get into a playoff series, Zack Wheeler is going to start. Aaron Nola is going to start. He's not a bullpen pitcher. He's going to stay in the rotation. Christopher Sanchez is probably going to stay in the rotation. And then one of Jesus Luzardo or Ranger Suarez. And listen, I think Luzardo will get the nod as a starter, which means I think Ranger will probably go to the bullpen. And I know they've said they don't want to use Andrew Painter as a reliever. They're definitely not going to do that in the regular season. But once you get to October, anything can happen. And if you need a guy to get through some innings, they might have to call Andrew Painter's number. So, if you head into a playoff series with, I want to pull up this bullpen really quick again, because you have to look at this, right? And you have to say, well, all of us know that Romano, Strom, Kerkering, and Ross will be here, no doubt, 100%. They're not going to DFA Joe Ross. Ideally, Tanner Banks is your absolute last option in the playoffs, because if you substitute Carlos Hernandez, Seth Johnson, and Max Lazar with a Pete Fairbanks, a Ranger Suarez, and a Mick Abel if they don't trade him, or an Andrew Painter if they don't trade him, all of a sudden, that's a really good bullpen. And all of a sudden, I don't necessarily know if the Phillies, how many do they want to get? Because right now, I would still love 2. And with 2 would be a Pittsburgh Pirate by the name of Tennis Santana. He is arbitration year 2 in 2025. Next year will be his 3rd and final year of arbitration. He's only on a $1.4 million contract, and he has lit it up for the Pirates this year. The reason that David Bednar has lost his closer spot is partially because he hasn't been throwing that well, but also because this guy has absolutely tore it up for the Pirates. 1.48 ERA in 25 games, 24 innings pitched, 21 strikeouts, just 17 hits allowed, 6 hits per 9, a .904 whip. He has an ERA plus of 285. That is unheard of. He has been tearing it up for the Pirates. Listen, either of these guys would work. I've always been very big on Pete Fairbanks, but Santana I would not mind as well. Listen, in a perfect world, the Phillies get 2 good relievers at the deadline, and say it was the 2 of them. Once again, you have Romano, Strom, Kerkering, Fairbanks, Santana, and then, maybe a Suarez, maybe a Painter, maybe an Abel if they don't trade Abel. They're going to have options, but I thought this report from Jeff Passan was big today because it's the first time, we've really seen a sort of report that the Phillies and a specific guy that they could go after in Pete Fairbanks if the Rays do sell at the deadline. What is your, ideal? What starter would you move to the bullpen? Is there a reliever out there that you're in on? I know a lot of people are in on Ryan Helsley. Mason Miller, I think, is just going to cost so much. He has 3 more years of control after this year. So I think a guy like Pete Fairbanks will be great along with Santana from the Pirates. This has been the newest episode of Phillies Digest. My name is Luke Arcaini, and I will see you guys next time.